My name is Gabriella. I'm sitting in a quiet cafe, across from the man who was once the love of my life. The air is thick with unspoken words, and the silence between us is almost deafening. 2 weeks ago, I made a decision that shattered our relationship, and now, looking at him, I can't help but think about how everything went so wrong. It all started about 1.5 years ago. I met Ethan through mutual friends at a small gathering. He was charming, intelligent, and had this calm demeanor that made people trust him instantly. We hit it off right away and fell into an easy rhythm. After a year of dating, he proposed during a quiet weekend trip. It wasn't a grand, over-the-top proposal, but it was perfect. A simple ring slipped onto my finger, and I felt like I had found my forever. Ethan worked in finance, and I was a marketing executive. We both had busy schedules, but we made it a point to have dinner together on weeknights, phones away. It was our way of being present with each other, and I thought it was a sign of our honesty and commitment. About 3 weeks ago, we were having dinner at my apartment. The smell of pasta, garlic, and basil filled the air. We had poured some wine, but it mostly sat untouched. It was one of those ordinary nights that usually made me feel grounded. But something was off. Ethan kept checking his phone. It wasn't constant, but it was enough to notice. Usually, his phone stayed in his jacket pocket during meals, but that night, it lay face up on the table, buzzing every now and then. Each time it buzzed, his jaw tightened. "Are you okay?" I asked casually, twirling pasta around my fork. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Work stuff." I waited for him to elaborate, but he didn't. I offered to help, but he shut down the conversation, saying it was handled. When the phone buzzed again, I saw a flash of something in his eyes. It could have been fear or calculation. His hand trembled slightly as he picked up the phone, read the message, and flipped it face down. The atmosphere in the room changed. It felt heavier. "Who was that?" I asked. "Nobody important," he replied. I studied him. This was the man who knew how I liked my coffee, who remembered my little brother's birthday without reminders, and who had driven an hour just to bring me soup when I was sick. "That didn't look like nobody," I said gently. He sighed and set his fork down. "It's just someone from my past. They've been trying to reach out." "An ex?" I asked. "Sort of. It's complicated," he said. "How complicated?" I pressed. That's when he really looked at me and said, "Don't ask about the people I used to know. That part of my life is over." It wasn't an angry statement, but it was defensive and final, like a door slamming in my face. I said okay, thinking I could accept it. But the rest of the dinner felt like a performance. We ate because the food was there, not because we were hungry. That night, I lay awake, replaying his words and the way he had acted. I wasn't jealous or suspicious, I was just unsettled. Over the next few days, I noticed more changes. He took calls in other rooms, his phone was always on silent, and he flinched when I walked in unexpectedly. The open and steady man I knew was withdrawing. When I asked if everything was okay, he said it was just work, a big client with tight deadlines. I wanted to believe him, I needed to. Then came the family dinner. My parents were hosting a small party for my little brother's 21st birthday. It was a gathering of about 15 people, a safe and familiar environment. Ethan had always gotten along well with my family. My mother adored him and said I had finally found someone reliable. That morning, he seemed back to normal. He helped me choose a gift for my brother, complimented my dress, and even joked with my dad when we arrived. For a moment, I thought I had imagined everything. But then, my uncle called. He said he was bringing a colleague from work. It seemed like no big deal. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang, and my world came crashing down. My uncle stepped in first, smiling as usual, his coat half off. Behind him was a woman. She was tall, confident, in her late 30s, with blonde hair pulled into a sleek low bun. She wore a sharp blazer and expensive heels that clicked softly on my parents' hardwood floor. She carried herself like someone who was used to being the center of attention. I didn't know her, but the moment Ethan saw her, I felt it. The color drained from his face, and his wine glass tilted slightly in his hand, the red liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. His fingers tightened around the glass until his knuckles went white. She saw him too, and her lips curved in a way that wasn't exactly a smile, more like a confirmation. "This is Vivian," my uncle said cheerfully. "We've been working together on a financial project." "Of course," my mother said immediately. "The more, the merrier. Come in." Vivian stepped forward, greeting everyone easily, shaking hands, and offering polite laughter at the right moments. She was charming, but in a very controlled way, every gesture precise and practiced. I stood near the kitchen doorway, watching Ethan out of the corner of my eye. He hadn't moved. When Vivian finally reached us, she stopped in front of Ethan. "I don't think we've met," she said smoothly, extending her hand. Ethan didn't take it. The silence stretched. I stepped closer instinctively. Then she tilted her head slightly. "Actually, I think we have, a few years ago." Ethan's voice came out strained. "I don't think so. I'm pretty sure." "You might not remember," she said. She reached into her structured leather bag and pulled out a single photograph. She held it up. I couldn't see it yet, but Ethan could. His breath caught audibly, and his shoulders slumped just a bit, like a man bracing for impact. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "Jogging your memory," she replied calmly. He shook his head. "You shouldn't be here." That's when everyone noticed. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. My mother froze near the stove, and my brother stopped laughing. All eyes turned towards us. "What's going on?" I asked. Vivian turned to me. "You must be Gabriella. I'm someone who knows your boyfriend, or rather, who knew him when he went by a different name." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" I asked. She handed me the photograph. It was a professional headshot, with studio lighting and high resolution. The man in the photo looked like Ethan, but not exactly. He had lighter, bleached hair, a sharper style, and intense eye contact with the camera. At the bottom, in clean printed text, it said "Available for private bookings." My hands went cold. I looked at Ethan. "What is this?" "It's not what you think," he said immediately. "What am I supposed to think?" I asked. Vivian spoke before he could answer. "About 5 years ago, your boyfriend worked as a high-end male escort for an exclusive clientele. It was very expensive. I was one of his clients. We had an arrangement for 6 months. He disappeared after the first payment." "That's not true," Ethan snapped. "You know that's not what happened." "So, you do remember me?" she said lightly. My head was spinning. I held up a hand. "Stop, both of you." I turned to Ethan. "Is this true? The escort part?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, but it's not the way she's saying it." "You took money from her?" I asked. "She's exaggerating," he said. Vivian laughed softly. "He took an advance payment of $50,000. "No," Ethan shot back. "It was $20,000. That was the agreement." "Still a lot," I said, my voice barely steady. "I used it to disappear, to get away," he said, looking into my eyes. Vivian pulled another document from her bag, a signed agreement showing $20,000 upfront and $30,000 upon completion. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. "This is inappropriate." "Maybe," I said quietly. "I want to hear this." Vivian's gaze never left Ethan. "You vanished, changed your name, changed cities. You were very thorough. How did I find you?" You were in the background of a photo your uncle posted online. It took me a while to confirm. I couldn't resist saying hello. My father stepped forward. That's enough. You need to leave. Vivian turned to me. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but you deserve to know who you're marrying. Get out, I said. She didn't argue. As she walked past Ethan, she leaned in slightly and murmured, "Take care." It didn't sound kind. After the door closed behind her, the house was silent. I looked at Ethan. We need to talk. We couldn't talk in the living room, not with my mother looking like she'd been slapped, my brother staring at the floor, and my uncle muttering apologies. I walked straight out the front door, and Ethan followed. The winter air hit my face like a cold splash of water. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely unlock my car. When we finally sat inside, the silence was heavier than the entire house behind us. I didn't start the engine. I just gripped the steering wheel until my fingers hurt. Ethan spoke first, his voice raw. I'm sorry. I laughed, sharp and humorless. That's what you open with? After all this? I didn't know she'd show up, he said quickly. I didn't plan this, Gabriella. I know you didn't plan it, I said, turning to him. That's what makes it worse. You built a whole life with me, assuming you could keep this buried. He swallowed hard. I was ashamed, he said. Were you ashamed or were you scared I'd leave? I asked. Both could be true, but only one of them is about me. He looked down at his hands. I wasn't who I am now. You said that part of your life was over, I said, my voice tight. You made it sound like an old hobby, not something that could show up at my parents' house with a photograph and a contract. His eyes met mine, and they were wet. I didn't want you to see me like that. I didn't soften. Tell me everything, right now. No editing. He nodded slowly. 5 years ago, I was broke. I'd lost my job, had a lot of debt, and was living in a motel. I was drowning. I met Vivian through someone who said she could help. She had money and connections. She made it sound like a temporary solution. It was escort work, high-end, private, and it paid well. I said flatly, escort work. He flinched at the word but nodded. At first, it was just business, he continued. But then it became about possession and control. She started showing up places she wasn't supposed to. She'd demand things that weren't part of our agreement, like what clothes I should wear, where I should go, and who I could talk to. She kept saying I owed her, not just time but me. I sat back, the cold leather seat against my spine. And the money? Did you take it and run? He swallowed. I took the $20,000, the first payment. I used it to get out. She always inflates the amount to make it sound like theft. But you still took $20,000 and didn't pay it back, I said. I didn't have anything to send back. I was barely surviving. I changed my name, moved, deleted accounts, and cut off everyone connected to that life. I even slept in my car for a while after the motel money ran out. I didn't want to feel sympathy, but I couldn't help it. My chest tightened. And you never thought that the person you were building a future with might deserve to know this? I wanted it dead, buried so deep it couldn't touch you, he said. That's not protection, I snapped. That's control. You decided for me. His face crumpled. I was terrified you'd look at me differently. I almost said, I am looking at you differently, but I held back. What happens now? She didn't come here for nostalgia. He rubbed his face with both hands. She's been texting and calling from unknown numbers, demanding money, threatening to expose more, contact my employer, and send things to people in my life now. It's extortion. I realized the message at dinner was from her. And you didn't tell me. You let me plan a wedding while your past was circling us like a wolf. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I ignored her, she'd get bored, he whispered. People like that don't get bored, I said. We sat in silence for a long time. Then I asked the question that scared me the most. Is she dangerous? He shifted his eyes away. That was all the answer I needed. He nodded once. Yes. My blood turned to ice. And you were going to marry me? You were going to put a ring on my hand, invite my family, and stand in front of everyone I love, while someone like that could walk into our life at any moment? Tears slid down his cheeks. I didn't think she'd find me. I thought I covered everything. She found you through social media, through my family, through me, I said. That's when I realized this wasn't just his secret. It had already started to stain my life. I need space, I said. He nodded quickly. I understand. But do you still love me? That question nearly broke my anger. I looked at him, the man I had trusted, who had made me feel safe. But I realized that safety had been an illusion. I don't know what I feel. I don't even know who I'm looking at. He closed his eyes, like my words physically hurt him. I drove him home in silence. He didn't ask me to come inside. At the curb, he whispered, I love you. I didn't answer because I didn't know what to say. The days that followed were a blur. I barely slept, haunted by images of that night at my parents' house. Work became a mindless routine. Ethan texted me constantly, saying he was sorry, that he should have told me sooner, and that he loved me. Each message felt like a weight on my shoulders. My family circled around me quietly. My mother called every morning to ask if I'd eaten. My brother offered to come over with takeout and movies. My dad sent a single message, take your time. Don't rush your heart. A week after the dinner, Ethan showed up at my apartment. He looked worse, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes. I hired a lawyer, he said immediately. For what? I asked. For Vivian. She's been escalating her threats, saying she'll send things to my employer, to you, and to your family. It's extortion, he said. I nodded. That's good. He reached into his bag and handed me a thick folder. I should have given you this before we got engaged, before I ever let you say yes. I didn't open it. What is it? Everything. Who I was, what I did, why I left, screenshots, bank records, police reports. I was too scared to show you before. I set the folder on the table like it might explode. Why now? Because you deserve the full truth. No more control, no more deciding for you, he said. I looked at him, exhaustion settling into my bones. Do you understand how late this is? Yes, he said. I hate myself for it. He left after that. That night, I opened the folder. Page by page, the man I loved unraveled into someone far more complicated. There were bank statements showing the $20,000 deposit, messages that started as business-like and turned possessive, photos of bruises he'd never mentioned, police reports that were drafted but never filed, and documents confirming his name change. Vivian's messages were there too, angry, demanding, and threatening. She wasn't just a scorned client, she was a predator who hated losing control. 2 weeks after the dinner, I called Ethan and asked him to meet me for coffee. We sat across from each other in a quiet cafe, both looking like we hadn't slept in weeks. I believe you, I said. Hope flickered in his eyes. I believe what you went through, that she's dangerous, and that you were trying to survive. The hope grew, but then I said, but I can't marry you. His hope died instantly. Why? He asked softly. Because you lied, not about your past, but about my right to know it. You decided I couldn't handle the truth. You took away my choice. Tears slid down his face, and he didn't wipe them away. I was scared, he said. I know, I replied. But fear doesn't excuse betrayal. We ended it there, no shouting, no begging. 3 months later, I heard through my uncle that Vivian had been charged with extortion and harassment. 2 other men had come forward, and a restraining order had been granted. As for Ethan, he moved to a different city and started over. I hope he's okay. As for me, I'm still rebuilding, slowly and carefully. Some days I wonder if I was too harsh, but most days I know I wasn't. Because love without truth isn't love, it's just a performance. And trust isn't about having no past, it's about having the courage to tell.